Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. My name is Andrew Townsend. I am an e-learning video evangelist here with eLearning Brothers. Today, we're going to be talking about using Illustrator to create PowerPoint assets. This webinar will be recorded. We'll get a copy of it out to everyone who has registered a few hours after the webinar. To talk to us about Illustrator and PowerPoint, we have Nick Brown, our Director of Product and Design. Thanks for joining us, Nick. We're excited to hear what you have to say. If you guys have questions during the webinar, we'll be ready to answer questions in the questions panel during the webinar. Feel free to use that questions panel as you need it. I'll try to bring up as many questions as I can to Nick, and in some cases, he'll try to demonstrate the answer to your questions. Just so you know, one of the things we like to do after the webinar is try to follow up as soon as possible. Sometimes it's just to get feedback. A lot of the time, it's just to get some one-on-one clarification about our webinar topics after the fact. And without further ado, I'll go ahead and turn the time over to you, Nick, and I will make you the presenter.
Thank you, Andrew, and to all of you that are here with us today. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yep, looks great.
Okay. So I want to show everybody how to create and use vector assets inside PowerPoint. So you see here, I have this icon that I got from our icon library, and it's saved as a .ai file. And if I want to just import that into PowerPoint, let me just click and drag this into here. You can see that it'll import just fine, and I can scale it, and it looks great. However, when I go to format this picture, there's not an option to change the fill. So if I try and change this fill, it fills its box around it. So what I want to do is show you how you could import this asset and be able to edit all of its vector qualities in here. So go back to Illustrator. I'm going to be showing you the process on a Mac. If you are using a PC, it's actually a lot easier. There are less steps involved, and I will explain each step for each process as well. So in Illustrator, if you do have your file and you have any of your assets that you want to export and save out, so you go to File, Export As, and you need to be a .emf file. See that I have that highlighted right here. And I click export, and that now exported for me. You see, that's right here now. So if you're using a PC, what you do next is just open this file in PowerPoint, and then you would right click and say break, and then you would be able to use it just as is. But if you're using a Mac, we have to use third-party software called OpenOffice, which is free. So I have that open here, and I want to open up Presentation. And I'm going to get rid of these boxes, and then I'm going to drag and drop my EMF icon into here. And then with it highlighted, I right-click and go to Break. And then when I highlight it, you can see now I should be able to change its color. When you do this, there are times when shapes get a little wonky. So if I scale this up, you can see that it has some sort of weird, not very even edges. So what you want to do is make sure that you export these from Illustrator at least 2 or 3 times as large as what your plans are to use them. But if you don't need it any larger than that, it looks pretty good. So then to get us into PowerPoint, I save this file. Excuse me. Save as, and then you choose a .ppt right here. Let's see it in this folder. Current format. And I can close that of that. And then I open this in PowerPoint. And you can either use this file to start from, or you can highlight and copy and paste from one file to another. So come into here, paste it, and I can scale it, and now I can change the color. Isn't that amazing? I think that's amazing. And I first heard about this, I was blown away about how easy that this is to do, and the amount of control this adds to your project. So I know that they'll usually break for questions at the end, but I have some more complex stuff to go over, and I just wanted to get this process out of the way. So do we have any questions on what we have gone through so far?
There's a few questions about other applications for this. Does this process apply only for PowerPoint, or can you use that same process to get it into Captivate, Lectora, Storyline?
So this process only works in PowerPoint.
As far as making it editable in PowerPoint.
Correct.
But you can still edit any old image in Illustrator, export it, and then bring it into any of the other tools, yes?
Correct.
Okay. Another question here is, what file format did you export as? Could you show us that again?
From Illustrator, It's a .emf file. So you just go to File, Export, Export As, and right there.
Okay. Is it possible to download EMF files from our library?
No, we don't have any those formats available, and it's actually not really a standard format in Vector, so most places probably don't offer that. But if you have access to Illustrator or a software that is like Illustrator that can export to that,
can convert to EMF. Okay, awesome. Those are all the questions we have at this time.
Perfect. And then just to reiterate that on the PC, you just bring in your EMF, right click, and then hit break, and then it would work just like this. So it's a lot easier if you're on a PC. So now, excuse me, I want to show you how to create some custom grunge objects to import. So in Illustrator, I'm going to create a new file, and I'll do it at this widescreen size. I need a brush for this, so let me bring this out here, close it, and show you. So you go to Window, Brushes, and then I want something a little bit more artistic. So I go to Artistic, and I'm going to choose the paintbrush library. So that opens up here, and if I use the paintbrush tool, I'm going to get rid of my fill and just use my stroke. If I draw, and then I go through and select some of these brush options for my stroke, you can see how they change. Now I want this to be a little bit wider, so let's make this maybe 10 pixels or so. Maybe that's too wide, maybe I want to go down to like 7. And then as I click through here, you can see as these change. So let me show you one that I have opened from before. All right, get rid of these. So this is my stroke that I drew with my brush tool, and it had one of those paintbrush strokes applied to it. And what I did, you can see me give these a fill so you can see how they look. So what I did is made a shape like so, and then I'm going to make a copy of this brush stroke, and then I want it to hang off the edges just a little bit, so bring in this shape like this, and then I'm going to outline this stroke so it's just a solid object. So go to Object, Path, Outline Stroke, and then just make sure that all the pieces are in one place. I'm going to go to my pathfinder and merge them all together. And then, so now you can see that this is not a stroke anymore, whereas that is a stroke. This is just a solid fill object. So now I want to cut this shape out of this shape. So I'm going to select them both, and then using Pathfinder, I'm going to minus front, and now you can see that these are now two separate shapes. And by default, they are grouped together, so I'm going to ungroup that. And then you would just export this file as a .emf, and then do the whole process I showed you before, which I'll do again. One thing to note is that when you export to an EMF is that it doesn't understand or read artboards. So you see how I have two different artboards here. When I export this, it's going to export everything that's in my whole entire document. So if I leave this here, that'll get exported in there. If I leave this here, it'll get exported as well. Let me just do that and show you. Excuse me. So go to export as .emf, export. See, that's right here. So then I go back to OpenOffice if I'm on a Mac, and I want to start a presentation. Get rid of these, and then drag and drop. And you see it brought in everything that was in that whole entire document and ignored that I had artboards. So, and you see that they are grouped together as one group. So right click and go to break. And now each piece should show up as its own group. And also you can see that this line that I had that was still a stroke is no longer a stroke. It automatically made it into a solid fill object. So you can see now I can change colors, and I can size them however I need to. Then go to Save As, save to PowerPoint. Keep current format. I can close that. Then I can open this new file. And then I can drag and drop all these pieces over now to a new file. Oops. Let's call this there. And now I can change color to whatever I need to. For this instance, how this was built, this is an image from our stock asset library, as is this one. So it's just an image placed on the background of the slide. And then I brought in my objects that I created and exported from Illustrator, and I gave them a gradient. And then I just made copies of it and just brought down the transparency a little bit, and I made some a little bit larger. So we scale down so you can see the one's a little bit larger, this one's a little bit smaller, and then I just layered them until I liked how it looked. This one, again, this is an image from our stock asset library that's just placed on the background of the slide, and then I brought in the object that I created. I made it solid fill white and just placed it over top of the image. For these icons, these are from our icon library, and I just did the same process that I showed you at the very first to bring in the actual icons themselves. But then to create this custom grunge ellipse, let me show you how that works. Actually, open up a file that I have from before in Illustrator, and it's the exact same process. So excuse me, I have this ellipse that I've applied a stroke to, and then I applied paintbrush to that. So let me draw a new ellipse for you here. You see it has a black stroke, and then we're going to go to Window, Brushes, and then again, Open Brush Library, and any of these work. So play around with them, see what you like. I'm going to open up this one, and I can click through these and see how they turn out. All right, so I like that one. I'm going to make my stroke a little bit wider. Let's try 3 pixels. Nope, that's too much. 0.5, let's do that. So then, in order to get this filled in space, you just draw another ellipse, and you just swap its stroke and its fill, and there you have it. Then you would export it as a .emf, open it in OpenOffice, do that whole process again, and open it in, on your slides.
So we've got a few questions,
Sure.
Nick, that have come in regarding these processes. One is, you're using Illustrator for this. Could these same principles and actions be done in Photoshop, or is Illustrator the only one you can do this in?
So you need to do it in Illustrator to keep it a vector file.
Okay. Speaking of vector files, does this process and the process you showed just before making those other shapes, does that work with more complex vectors, for example, working with multiple colors, or only with a single color
Nope,
vector?
it'll work for any amount of colors, but the more you add, the harder it is to manage and edit those in PowerPoint, because PowerPoint's not really meant, it wasn't built to do complex graphics like that, but yes, you can do it.
Okay. All right. Those are all the questions at this point.
Okay. Well, that's essentially it. I did want to talk about our PowerPoint graphics library. So we have infographics, there are some icon usage, there's graphs and charts, and all of those have been built either in PowerPoint or through the same process. And so everything that's included that you open up on a slide, you can edit and change color and scale. So it's really great offering to have access to all those files.
Excellent. Another question that just came in, should the graphics be solid colors? For example, don't use gradients when working in Adobe Illustrator to prepare it to export to PowerPoint?
I actually don't know what it does. Let's do a quick test. I have a feeling that it may just convert it to a solid color, but that's awful, I know, but let's just see. Oops, let's bring run this back over here. It looks like it retains the gradient. However, I'm not sure if OpenOffice does support gradient. Looks like it does not. So I would keep them solid colors, and then just add your gradients to your slide in PowerPoint.
Just as a safe bet.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Going back to when you broke down the EMF file, there's someone on a PC. They're saying that they brought their file in and tried to right-click on the file and click break, but they don't see the break option on the PC. Can you show that again? And again, Nick is on a Mac. He's good with PCs, but sometimes things baffle him.
So I don't have a way to show you that right now because I'm not using a PC, and the options aren't going to be the exact same because I'm using OpenOffice, which is not PowerPoint. But we can look into this right after this, and in our blog post about this, we can include some screenshots.
Absolutely.
Of how that works.
Would you say, because they're saying that they can find ungroup but not break, is that likely the same thing?
That might be the same thing.
Okay. Best way is to try it.
Yeah.
And see if it works.
Sorry, I don't have those answers exactly.
That's fine. I think you have one more slide for me, right, Nick?
Yes, I do.
So Nick will put together all of this information and he'll get it out to you guys in the recap, which will happen later this week. I'll send a copy of this webinar out to everyone as well. If you want to see more of what our PowerPoint graphics library is, or our stock assets library, or anything like that you'd like to see, give us a call, schedule a free demo. You can even email info@elearningbrothers.com. We also, for the first time ever this year, we're having ELBX, which is a conference that eLearning Brothers is putting on. We're all pretty excited about it. If you want to learn more, by all means, go visit elearningbrothers.com and check it out. We've got tons of information there that you can use to get excited and see if you want to come into the mountains of Utah and hang out with eLearning Brothers. That'll be a lot of fun.
You should all attend. It's going to be amazing.
It's going to be amazing for sure. So like I said, be looking for that email. Also later in the week, we'll get a recap that'll have more of a breakdown with these steps, and we'll get some answers for you on the PC version. Thank you, Nick, for joining us.
You're welcome.
And we'll see you guys all later.
Thank you.